everyone. Welcome back to Occult Series. Today we're going to be talking about Friedrich Nietzsche. He was born in 1844 and died in 1900. Nietzsche was a German philosopher, essayist, and cultural critic. His writings on truth, morality, language, aesthetics, cultural theory, history, nihilism, power, consciousness, and the meaning of existence have exerted an enormous influence on Western philosophy and intellectual history. Nietzsche spoke of the death of God and foresaw the dissolution of traditional religion and metaphysics. Some interpreters of Nietzsche believe he embraced nihilism, which is the belief that all values are baseless and that nothing can be known or communicated. Rejected philosophical reasoning and promoted a literary exploration of the human condition, while not being concerned with gaining truth and knowledge in the traditional sense of those terms. It is agreed that he suggested a plan for becoming what one is through the cultivation of instincts and various cognitive faculties, a plan that requires constant struggle with one's psychological and intellectual inheritances. Nietzsche claimed the exemplary human being must craft his or her own identity through self-realization and do so without relying on anything transcending that life, such as God or a soul. Nietzsche later thematized the importance of self-overcoming for the project of cultivating a free spirit. The middle and latter part of the 1870s was a time of great upheaval in Nietzsche's personal life. In addition to the turmoil with Wagner and related troubles within the artist's circle of admirers, he suffered digestive problems, declining eyesight, migraines, and a variety of physical ailments, rendering him unable to fulfill responsibilities for months at a time. Nietzsche's academic reputation was effectively destroyed due to some of his works' apparent disregard for scholarly expectations, characteristic of 19th century theology. He was 34 years old and apparently liberated, not only from his teaching duties as professor and the professional discipline he grew to despise, but also from the emotional and intellectual ties that dominated him during his youth. His physical woes, however, would continue to plague him for the remainder of his life. In the latter part of the 1880s, Nietzsche's health worsened, and in the midst of an amazing flourish of intellectual activity, Nietzsche suffered a complete mental and physical breakdown. After spending time in psychiatric clinics, Nietzsche was first placed with his mother and then his sister Elizabeth. By the early 1890s, Elizabeth had seized control of Nietzsche's literary remains, which included a vast amount of writing. She quickly began shaping his image and the reception of his work, by which time had already gained the momentum among academics. Soon the Nietzsche legend would grow in spectacular fashion among popular readers. Unfortunately, Friedrich experienced little of his fame as having never recovered from his breakdown of late 1888 and early 1889. Nietzsche discovers that one thing is needful for the explanatory human being, to craft an identity from otherwise disassociated events, bringing forth the horizons of one's existence. Self-realization, as it is conceived in the text, demand the radicalization of critical inquiry and a historical consciousness, and there a retrograde step back from what is revealed in such animations insofar as the revelations threaten to dissolve all metaphysical realities and leave nothing but abysmal comedy of existence. A peculiar kind of meaningfulness is thus gained by the retrograde step. It yields a purpose for existence, but not in an ironic form, perhaps esoterically and without ground. It is transparently nihilistic to the man with insight, but suitable for most susceptible to all sorts of suspicion. It is none the less necessary, and for that reason enforced by institutional powers. Nietzsche called the one who teaches the purpose of existence a tragic hero, and the one who understands the logic of the retrograde step a free spirit. Nietzsche's account of this struggle for self-realization and meaning leads him to consider problems related to metaphysics, religion, knowledge, aesthetics, and morality. We can say that Nietzsche does not intend to establish an unmovable absolute, a negative system from which dogma may be drawn. Many commentators will argue that instead of building a system, Nietzsche is concerned only with the exploration of problems, and that his kind of philosophy is limited to the interpretation and evaluation of cultural inheritances. As early as 1873, Nietzsche was arguing that human reason is only one of many peculiar developments in the ebb and flow of time, And when there are no more rational animals, nothing of absolute value will have transpired. It is at the very least accurate to say that for Nietzsche, nihilism has become a problem by the 19th century. In this environment, old value systems were being dismantled under the weight of newly discovered grounds for doubt. The possibility arises that then that annihilation for Nietzsche is merely a merely a temporary stage in the refinement of true belief. Yet another view will have it that by nihilism Nietzsche is pointing out something even more unruly at work in the Western world's orientation. The problem of nihilism Nietzsche is showing us the essence of Western metaphysics and its system of values, according to this view. Nietzsche's philosophy is of value, with its emphasis on the value-positing gesture, implies that even the concept of truth in the Western worldview leads to the arbitrary determinations of value and political order, and that this worldview is disintegrating under the weight of its own internal logic. According to Nietzsche, the highest values devalue themselves. As modernities striving for honesty, probity, and courage in the search for truth, those all important virtues inhabiting the core of scientific progress, sink a fatal blow against the fundamental idea of absolute. Even the truth of truth now falls prey to the workings of nihilism, given that Western metaphysics now appears groundless in this logic. Western metaphysics brings about its own disinterrogation and working out the implications of its inner logic. Nietzsche's name for this great and terrible event, capturing popular imagination with honor and disgust, is the death of God. Nietzsche acknowledges that a widespread understanding of this event, the great noon, at which all shadows of God will be washed out, is still to come. In Nietzsche's day, the God of the old metaphysics is still worshipped, and would be worshipped, he predicted, for years to come. But Nietzsche insisted in an intellectual climate that demands honesty in the search for truth and proof as a condition for belief. The absence of foundations has already been laid bare. The dawn of a new day had broken, and shadows now cast, though long, were receding by the minute. Nietzsche claims that the logic of an existence lacking inherent meaning demands from an organizational standpoint a value creating response, however weak this response might initially be in comparison to how its values are then taken when enforced by social institutions. Surveys of various cultures show that humanity's most indispensable creation, the affirmation of meaning and purpose, lies at the heart of all fundamental values. Nihilism stands not only for that apparently inevitable process by which the highest values devalue themselves. It also stands for that moment of recognition in which human existence appears to be in vain. Nietzsche's surveys of cultures and their values are typically reductive and extreme, attempting to reach the important social political questions as neatly and quickly as possible. This version of nihilism then means that absolute aims are lacking and that cultures naturally attempt to compensate for this absence with the creation of goals. When indeed why finds no answer, nihilism is complete. The danger here is that the value positing agent might become paralyzed, leaving the call of life's most dreadful question unanswered. Nietzsche's most important cultural anthropologies examined the Greeks from Homer to the age of tragedy and the pre-Platonic philosophers. Nietzsche believed that humanity could face the dreadful truth of existence without becoming paralyzed. The Greek type nevertheless demonstrates the characteristics of strength by activating and reintensifying the capacity to create by overcoming paralysis. By willing a new truth and by affirming the will, Nietzsche declares himself with great emphasis to be the teacher of eternal reoccurrence. Redemption in this life is denied, while an uncomplicated form of nihilism remains the fundamental condition of humanity. Thank you, Thank you all for listening. This was about Friedrich Nietzsche. You can look him up and look up his Warning to the World. There's plenty of other works by him. Some have been translated into English, some haven't. I hope you've enjoyed this. Love, peace. Until next time, welcome to the Occult Series. Goodbye.